Why Americans will fight against Nord Stream 2 to the end. The start of Nord Stream 2 will mean a serious increase in budget expenditures for the US. First of all, to support the Ukrainian economy. Therefore, the US will try to prevent the launch of the pipeline by any means, blackmailing Europe, using the green agenda, or applying sanctions against it. It is quite difficult to link the possible sanctions against Nord Stream 2 and Russia's opposition to it, if one understands the matter at least a little bit. Our country's budget receives revenues from gas exports, 30% duty, regardless of the supply route. The volume of gas exports from Russia is not limited by the infrastructure. Unused transit capacity through Ukraine allows us to increase supplies to the West by 90 billion cubic meters from the level of pumping in 2021. Gazprom incurs additional expenses for transit through Ukraine, but thanks to the record gas prices last year, and their maintenance at a high level at least for the first half of this year, all losses, possible and potential, have been compensated. Also, all the costs of constructing the inoperative Nord Stream 2 have been recouped, as it became known back in the fall of 2021. As a result, it is not quite clear how, according to the initiators of sanctions, the failure to launch Nord Stream 2 should have a disastrous effect on the Russian economy. Putting aside political motives, which are poorly measured in numbers, let us turn to pure economics. Between 2014 and 2021, the US allocated $7.6 billion in official aid to Ukraine alone, not including guarantees for Kiev's government loans, which are estimated at over $1 billion more. It should be noted that funds allocated for security purposes, i.e. military assistance, does not exceed 25% of this amount. The main part was invested in the maintenance of the economy of the country. Ukraine receives up to $3 billion for the transit of Russian gas, Artem Tuzov, executive director of the Capital Market Department of the Unicapital IC, explains. Ukraine's budget revenues for 2021 amounted to $39 billion against expenditures of $46 billion, that is, the budget deficit was $6.2 billion. In 2024, when the contract on gas transit between Russia and Ukraine expires, the figures will be different, but the loss of revenue of $3 billion will increase the budget deficit by almost 50%, the expert said. According to the calculations of the Ukrainian side, in case of switching of the Russian gas export to the Nord Stream 2, the GDP of the country, $200 billion in 2021, will decrease by 0.9%, $1.8 billion, Associate Professor of Finance University under the Russian government Valery Andrianov says. But the losses will not be direct. At the moment, Ukraine's gas transportation system, GTS, focused on the transit of Russian gas, is serviced by about 50,000 employees. Most of them will lose their jobs. Moreover, the termination of Russian transit means the transition from virtual to real reverse. In fact, the entire national gas supply system and new logistics will have to be rebuilt, Andrianov stresses. According to Sergei Suvorov, investment strategist of the Ari Capital Management Company, the real reverse will not be much more expensive than the virtual one, about $10 per thousand cubic meters. But in order for the Ukrainian GTS to work, it needs a lot of technical gas, the level of which is currently maintained due to the need to transit it from Russia. The final price of gas for Ukrainian citizens and enterprises will be higher than the cost of maintaining the GTS and technical gas. We may assume that it will add another 15 to 20% to the exchange price of gas, Tuzov specifies. It is unlikely that Ukraine will be able to find resources for all the above given the budget deficit, at the expense of domestic resources. The only thing left to count on is foreign help, primarily from the US. Taking into account the approximate losses of the Ukrainian economy, the US will have to increase financial support to Ukraine at least twofold. For the US it is not prohibitive spending, but it will hardly be possible to explain its meaning to the American taxpayers. And there is a strict policy there. That is why it is much easier and cheaper to stop Nord Stream 2 as a project threatening energy security of Europe. In the meantime, at the end of January, the feasibility study for construction of the Soyuz East gas pipeline was completed. It will be an extension of the Russian gas pipeline Power of Siberia 2, and will make it possible to supply about 50 billion cubic meters of gas per year to the dynamically growing Chinese gas market in the world. The construction is planned to start in 2024. Antonov told on what conditions the Russian president will continue the dialogue with the U.S. Photo: Alexei Agrishev/RIA Novosti Photo. Alexei Agrishev/RIA Novosti Photo. Alexei Agrishev/RIA Novosti. Russian ambassador to the U.S. Anatoly Antonov said that Russian President Vladimir Putin will decide on the expediency of further dialogue with the U.S. after examining written responses from Washington on security guarantees. Now we are conducting an interdepartmental analysis of the documents sent to us. Its results will be reported to Russian President Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, who will decide on the advisability of continuing the dialogue, Antonov told Newsweek. He also noted that the US and NATO responses do not arouse much enthusiasm, because they suggest focusing on important, but secondary issues. Besides, Antonov stressed, in the opinion of Moscow, NATO countries strengthen their own security at the expense of weakening Russia. He explained that this is the reason why Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov sent a letter to his U.S. counterpart Anthony Blinken on January 28. In the letter, Russia insists that the agreement on the indivisibility of security be implemented in good faith. We want confirmation of the commitments previously made by the U.S., otherwise honestly explain why the U.S. and its allies do not want to follow the solutions we all agreed upon, Antonov said.